is going to be our third place award winner. This is Harris Wiltsher. He was our Best in Show award winner last year, so it's kind of fun to get to see him as an award winner two years in a row. And Harris's work that won is a seriograph, and it is, I don't know if Vanessa can go to the next slide. There we go.
Where are we seeing slides?
It's called Dancing Crown, and made last year, and was sponsored. This award was sponsored by Full Earth Farm. So I'm going to let kind of Harris get started here, but I just wanted to first ask him, tell me more about this series. I know the Crown series is something that you've been working on for a few years, and I'd love to hear more about kind of what inspired you to create this work.
Yeah, we did get you know, some of these questions in advance. I don't know if that was supposed to say that, but so I have some canned responses, but yeah, well, for the Crown series, it was really more of a response to an original idea that I wanted to focus on natural hairstyles for people from the African diaspora. So I started really with the head wraps, and primarily just to kind of focus on you know, the sort of cultural patterning against the black background, which is the paper, and along with like dark brown skin tones. And so my idea was really to portray the strength of Black women and elevate their likeness in my own way, sort of to the level of you know, queens. And then, but conceptually, what I really wanted to do is, you know, kind of celebrate sort of different types of cultures, which I intend to represent from every country in the continent of Africa, and then also a number of the countries in the Caribbean, as well as provide some historical context to them. So it's an ever-evolving type of series, and so right now I think it's at its really infantile stage, because I do intend to create prints that are twice this size, and so we're looking at, you know, probably 2 to 3 times the size of what they are right now. These images are on 22 by 30, so we're looking at paper that may be 3.5 by 4.5 feet eventually, as far as prints is concerned.
Is it difficult to make prints that size, to make screen prints that size?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it is a bit difficult. It is a big challenge, but we do have like a one-person Cincinnati printer that, you know, that the screen itself is about plus or minus about 4 by 5 feet. And so, yeah, so I could do in our studio here at Florida A&M, I can do that. I've actually done some prints that large.
We did steal some photos from your Instagram of kind of the process of
yeah.
Is this at your studio, or is this at the FAMU studio?
It's in the FAMU studio, but it's my studio because I'm and you know, it's my studio. So I mean, I use all the facilities there, but this right here is actually, this is an image of some new work that I'm working on currently. Typically what happens is with the models, and I know that someone asked about like the models, all the models, I mean, I take all the photographs. All the models come from friends and colleagues that, you know, that I select, you know. And then I do all of the styling as well. And I'm just kind of looking for, you know, images that are maybe perhaps introspective, but also sort of, you know, give me all 3 facets of really what I'm looking for. Sort of like I'm kind of transcribing them into this sort of image that they would not really see of themselves. And then also, you know, the sort of the cultural aspect of the patterning against that Black background. And so, you know, I'm looking for that kind of dynamic as well as I'm creating these. But eventually, you know, my intent is to bring a little bit more cultural context within them as well.
Right. Can you kind of talk about, I mean, I know I put this question when I sent some questions to you. Can you talk about kind of that importance? I know, let me look at a couple of these. I know hair and, you know, is really had this intersection of hair and identity, especially for Black Americans or, you know, African Americans, or African or, you know, Afro-Cuban. I know there's a lot between, a lot of connection there. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of why you focused on it?
Yeah, well, you know, hair and identity is a double-edged sword in the African American community, particularly with African American women, which doesn't really necessarily have the same influence of power in other communities outside of the United States. So like in 2009, Chris Rock, he did this documentary which he starred and produced, and he also narrated, called Good Hair. And it was like a humorous approach to like how women of color sort of perceive and, you know, and style their hair historically. So my intention was to bring a positive and more political message through the series. And it, like in his work or in that documentary, he was primarily looking at not what, like how your hair is styled or what you're doing with it per se, but you know, sort of the inner part of that person, and in, you know, how that sort of reflects through even the hairstyles and you know, just fashion in general. So I was really looking at that as well. But the other part to it, I think, is, you know, sort of the transference between you know, what that means and, you know, and what that is as it relates to like here in the Americas, as opposed to sort of other parts of the world. Yeah.
I'm trying to see what else we have here. So this is, I think, another one that Angie took from maybe your Instagram.
Yeah. I brought some of them down from the studio because I was like, well, maybe I can just, you know, pop them up. So I do have like the, you know,
Okay.
the actual ones, but it's pretty much the same thing.
So for those of us who aren't familiar, can you talk about your process and, you know, screen printing?
Okay, well, screen printing is, I mean, that's probably the most popularized printmaking process, because everybody wears a t-shirt, I'm sure, or bought a t-shirt. And so it's the same process by which it's a stencil where the screen is used and there's ink that's pushed through the screen and onto the paper. And then it's what happens is that you can reduce the amount of area in which the actual ink can actually make it to the screen and make it through the screen and onto the paper. So my particular technique, and I'm sorry if I'm not looking in the camera properly, my particular technique is called a reduction technique. And the idea is that I'm reducing the area within the screen that the ink goes through the screen and onto the paper. And so what happens, so for example, I'll just give you an example, just like the American flag. So we have the American flag, right? And if I'm printing it on white paper, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to block out the areas that I want to remain white, which are the six white stripes and the 50 stars. So I'm gonna, in the screen, there is a thing called screen filler. It's a liquid that you can actually paint onto the screen. So I would actually paint those areas in, and then the color that I would print would be red. So everything would be red except for those areas that I actually painted in that I wanted to remain white. So that would be my first go around. Then once I did that, then I would clean the screen, clean all the ink out the screen, and then I would paint in all the areas that I want to remain red, which would be the 7 stripes. Paint those in, and then I would print blue. And so from if you know Photoshop or any of those, it's basically levels. So the first level would be red, and then on top of it would be the blue. And that's kind of how it works. That's a very simplified version, because with these, I probably print upwards to about 10 colors just on the skin tone.
Wow.
And they're all hand done, meaning that they're all hand painted in. They're not done with photography or, you know, shooting those images into the screen. You can see on the far, well, I mean, you can see on the far left, you can see sort of like bits and pieces of the image, and then it kind of progresses to what you see. Final result.
So the one that has in the back that looks like it's got the white, is that?
Yeah, silver. Yeah, that's the very first color that I printed.
Okay, and you just kind of build on that color?
And just build upon it.
Wow. This is a really interesting process. So how many layers would you say that the Dancing Crown has?
Now, I don't know how many printmakers are in this or watching us, but I'm supposed to be keeping count. Technically, I'm supposed to keep count. Probably, I would say at least, 25 colors.
Wow. Wow.
25 colors at least. It's probably about 8 just in the skin tone alone. You won't be able to really, you only be able to really tell it if you see it see it up close.
Right.
But the way that I do print though is it's kind of like probably abstract expressionism in a way, because what I do is when I print, I let that first color dictate the next color and the next color and the next color. So when I'm looking at these, I see them in black and white, and then I imagine the color, but I don't necessarily stick with the color that, as I go along, because I let, each color sort of dictate where I'm gonna go with it. And, I mix colors all the time. So it's never going to be the same thing. Even the skin tones are different from one print to the other. It's not a it's not a cookie cutter kind of thing that I use.
Right.
So, yeah.
One of the things I saw on your Instagram was that you said you only make like 4 about and prints for each one. So it's some people think, oh, it's a print. Is it a copy? And it's not a copy. Each one is an original work of art.
Yeah, that's why I love printmakers. I don't have anything against you, all you painters in here. Suzanna, I love your work. And Lester, I love your work too. But as a printmaker, we do multiple originals at the same time. So yes, I reserve to do editions 3 and 4. I can do 10, I can do 20, but I reserve to do it that way just because I just like the fact that if you get that work, you may see my work somewhere else, but you won't see the exact work. And one of the other things is I'm not rich like those folks I just mentioned.
Oh.
But, with these the model, I actually give them one as a payment. So that takes away one of those out of the edition. Mm-hmm. And so, I usually end up with 2 or 3 that I get to exhibit and or sell. So I like that exclusivity.
Yeah. And did you say who this model was?
This right here is a good friend of mine. Her name is Sharika Duncan. And she's here locally, but she's also an author. Mm-hmm. And she just wrote a book last year called The Setup. And she was, and it's doing pretty well. It's like a fictional it's a fictional novel, but it also has these sort of poems sort of weaved into it, and some kind of, self-help type of statements within it as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she's here in town, and I've worked with her before, not in this capacity, but like in community service events and stuff like that, because she's over like a dance group, for kids and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. That's really neat. Well, thank you so much, Harris. I really appreciate it. And I know this is going to be hard because I'm going to keep wanting to listen to all of you guys, but I'm going to go on to the next one if you don't mind. I just want to say thank you so much, Harris. That was really interesting. And, I look forward to talking with you about it more in the future.
Set aside time at the end for more questions too. So, yes. So that way, if you think of anyone in the audience thinks of questions, You can send them to me or Angie privately if you'd like, and we can ask them for you, or you can just put them in the chat and everybody can see them. So feel free to do those while we're talking, and we can look at those at the end.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anissa. Our second place award winner is a fairly large ceramic piece by Barbara Balzer. The title is Carrying Memories Through the Floating World. And our judge was really captivated by this piece. Even though she didn't technically see it in person, you know, all of these pieces she viewed on her screen. We sent her the images, and then I also walked around the gallery with her with my computer on a Zoom, and I also took more up close photos of some of the pieces that she would request, and this is one of them that she wanted to see more of the backside and see some up close stuff. So she was really struck by Barbara's use of the glazes and everything. So Barbara, I just wanted to say welcome to you. Hopefully you're on here, and welcome to Zoom. And I just want to ask if you would either read your statement or artist statement, tell me a little bit more about your artworks and kind of your ideas for these works.
I don't have the artist statement that I submitted, so I don't know what it says. If you have it, you could read it. But this was I gave you some other slides that sort of show where this one came from, the element, the balloon person.
Yes.
Instead of using figures to report or being reactive to something, I always like to include sort of a magical element like this one. So if you go to the Tate Museum in England, there's this painting to the left, and it's called Lady's Cholmondeley, and it's the size of a garage door. And I just thought, what? And I couldn't wait to Google them. I couldn't figure out, you know, are they twins? What's the story? And it turned out they were two women in the 1600s. It's by an anonymous British person. And they're two sisters who were born the same day, got married the same day, and gave birth the same day. And so there's this portrait. And when you first look at it, they look identical. Well, what happened is I just lost a sister who I grew up with. We had bunk beds, library cards. We shared days of the week underwear. You know, you get 7, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we were very close, and she passed. And so, but she had joined sort of a cult thing. So I didn't have access to her for maybe the last 5 years of her life, and we had been very close. So I took these figures, and if you because we were so close growing up, I kind of identified. But if you look at both the mothers and the bambinos, they're not identical. Their eyes are different colors. The lace around them are different color. But I Googled and I said, I'm going to sculpt these. I don't know why, whatever happened, I'm going to do this because as a tribute to my sister. But if you go to the next slide relating to the close-up of the babies, of their baby, they're both cradling these babies. But I thought, oh, my sister and I separated. If we were that close, identical, everything. And then, so I made them into balloons. The little babies are balloons to symbolize me and my sister floating away from each other. And unless you look at it closely, you don't see that. You just think it's mimicking a famous painting from England. But that's boring. You don't want a reactive thing. You want to contribute something, have a dialogue with it, play with it, introduce some element that makes somebody think, what's that about? And they can bring their own story to it or narrative or whatever. But to me, I made the babies into balloons. Having just lost my sister, we sailed away from each other. So when I came to do this piece, Carrying Memories Through the Floating World, that's a process piece, just to show she's getting ready. And in ceramics, it's always very unclear. Those are all slab pieces. I do everything slab built. Head is slab built. The torso is slab built. The arms are slab built. Hands aren't slab built. So when you clay shrinks at 13% by the time all the air is out, but it's shrinking even more at a molecular level. And you can always explode. You don't always get your product in. It's like Christmas. You open it up and it's like, oh, it's all there instead of exploding. At 212, water becomes steam. It went out. And there's a lot of stress places in this sculpture where you connect things, you're trapping more water in there. The elbow, the head to the neck, the hand. So that's an opportunity for the clay to either crack or blow up altogether. And this one made it through. And then the element of the smaller figure, that is really a balloon. If you look down close, like the babies were balloons, this is a balloon for a different reason. And they were negative. The first one, we floated away from each other, but everybody's okay. This one, I decided to make it memories because I was thinking of her and her other losses in our family and my dog of 15 years. And I just thought, but I'm always smiling when I'm thinking about things we did together and things. So I made her anti-gravitational, a balloon. She's floats. So it's not like a chore. I read what the judge said about it, and it, you know, mine is. I love her words. I was very flattered and very grateful how she critiqued it. But this is sort of, she's anti-gravitational, the figure that's capturing the memories. So you're carrying memories with you, but it's not necessarily. So you can stop in traffic and remember something, and you find yourself smiling. So I was experiencing all these memories. So we all do. And so that's a figure that you don't leave memories behind. They're there, whether you see them or not. So that's what that figure was. And I made it to balloon because they were lightweight. They were anti-gravitational. They were wonderful. So they were nice. So she talks about glazes. Glaze is a whole nother element. You can have something coming out of a kiln, and then it begins. And like right now, I'm reading Van Gogh's, rereading the Van Gogh's letters to his brother Theo. Well, he blossomed the last 2 years of his life. He found color in Arles and St. Remy at the asylum. So you look at his first work, it's all dark, it's drawing, blah, blah. His brother kept sending him, for 10 years, he got me from his brother. The last 2 years, he finds the Impressionist in France. And he takes off, he leaves them behind, he introduces color. And so I could sort of do a black wash on this and maybe, you know, whatever, and find high points and low points, but I always like to glaze. It's another element. And so this was sort of muted, though. I wanted to keep it quiet. And I always like stripes and dots. We used to teach, I would tell my students, this is not to be crass, but stripes and dots sell. Because when you look at a Uccello painting, I always think, why do I love this? Well, if you cover up a striped flag or the dotted pantaloons on the soldier, it's boring. It's that one little thing of repetitive, the eye likes predictability. So at some point, I like to do stripes or dots as an element of my glazing. And in this, I've accidentally abused the white glaze that comes down like lace on the, so that was a nice accident. But you can't tell, but those green stripes aren't just green. They started out lavender, blue, forest green, lime green, chartreuse, and you do washes between. If you get a real close-up, you can see that there's a lot of color going on in there. And same with her dress. You can't tell that unless you're really close. And then there's some gold highlights, just to keep the eye moving and to keep the viewer looking and keeping interested.
Well, oh, go ahead, Anissa.
I was going to say, it looks gorgeous. I did see we had a question coming in. Can you explain what slab building is?
Oh, good. There's many ways. Clay can be built 3 ways. Coil, which if you roll things like a cigar and you keep rolling, you get a coil, and you can build that way. You can pinch. The first pots were made pinch pots. Just get a ball of clay, stick your thumb in the middle, and rotate it. You have a pinch pot. Those were the first. Then the next were coil. Then slabs they're plaques. You take a rolling pin. I do it like the Japanese do. I take a rectangle or a square, pound it down with my fist, and start doing bread makers do. I don't know what, just toss it and making it come to me back and forth. I don't use a rolling pin necessarily. I used to have a slab roller, and I donated it probably 20 years to Le Moyne, because I took a class from this Japanese artist and said the clay is much stronger on a molecular level if you do this tossing like back and forth. I have to do a demonstration. I can show you, but it's not slab rolling like with a rolling pin. It's taking it, pounding it down, taking the edge and slapping it back and forth, maybe like people do laundry to get the water out, because you're trying to elongate it. So then I cut out a rectangle, usually a rectangle. Depending on if I'm doing the torso, I need 2 rectangles because the seams are down the side. And then you keep it open so you can work both from the outside and the inside. I can go outside and, you know, make the tummy come out, the breasts come out, the shoulders splay out. And I can also add clay from the outside if I want to do something. That's the dangerous part, because that's what traps water. And that's where you get points of tension and explosions. Because I really wanted to add a tummy to this one woman. It didn't work out. Her whole tummy and everything exploded. I could have gone from the inside and pulled it out toward me, but for some reason I didn't. But you learn, whatever. And so the arms are slab built. Those are narrower ones. And then if the figure has legs, I usually do torso first, then arms, then thighs, then below the knee, whatever that's called, and connect them all then. And the payoff are the feet and the hands, and the last thing's the head. It's where all the intelligence is. So slab building is basically, think playing card, a really large playing card, a rectangle. And if you're going to make an arm, you fold, you could take it around something round, but you don't really need to if it's got enough water out of it. And you just make a seam and press it together and baby it, so each seam disappears. And so you have these rolls that are hollow, because that's less places for things to blow up. Plus, in a kiln, usually if something is over an inch thick, it's going to blow up. So you try to keep things 3/4 of an inch in my slabs, and work from there.
Thank you, Barbara. That was so interesting. And we do have your statement. It's on our website. If you go to the Art in Gadsden page and scroll down, all of the artists are listed, and you can click on the statements. So sorry I didn't have that right away, but y'all can.
I definitely recommend reading that one. I can maybe even copy it and put it in the chat for later for folks to read.
Good idea. Good idea. Thank you, Anissa. And thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate it. Next, I'm going to introduce our first place award winner. This is an encaustic piece by Terrie Corbett. The title is 9th Street Jazz. And our juror was really drawn to this piece. She said, what is happening here? She just was really kind of intrigued by it. And, the first thing you want to know is, Terrie, tell us what is it about this title? Why is it titled 9th Street Jazz?
Hi. First, thank you. Can y'all see me or hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I couldn't tell. I'm a little bit hoarse, so I'm sorry. Yes, 9th Street Jazz is actually an homage to a book I've enjoyed reading called 9th Street Women. It was about the abstract expressionists. And, they were marginalized by museums and galleries during that period of time, but of course not by their peers. And it's specifically about Elaine de Kooning, who was Willem's wife, Lee Krasner, who was Pollock's wife, Grace Hartigan, Joan Mitchell, and coming in a little bit later and a little bit younger was Helen Frankenthaler. Also, my work is improvisational and expressive, intuitive, and it's not unlike a visual jazz. So that's really where the title came from.
That's so interesting. What was the book called again?
It's called 9th Street Women by Mary Gabrielle. And I'm actually reading it again. It's really good.
Well, not to put a plug in for Gadsden Arts, but we're having an exhibition this fall called Hoffman to Warhol, and we do have we'll have a piece by Helen Frankenthaler, and I wanted to have more women, but it was harder to. They weren't as collected by museums. They weren't as celebrated, so it was harder to borrow work by.
You have Joan Mitchell now too, right?
Hmm?
We have the
Joan Mitchell. Thank you. We did add Joan Mitchell, so that was exciting.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, it was not to take it away from you, but that makes me like the piece even more. So I know you experiment with lots of different mediums, and you've sent us some pictures of this. The next slide is a really cool, there's some neat studio images, and then also some other pieces that you had sent me. But I just wanted to, if you could tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here and all of these images.
Yes, this is my studio is divided into oil painting and cold wax, and then of course on the left is the encaustic area, the hot area. This is kind of an area I have to be careful of. I have a what do you call it? A fire extinguisher over in the corner there, but I've only had one fire since I started working. But I do, you know, you had asked me about the different mediums that I work in. I do work in encaustic. I also work in oil and cold wax. I worked in kiln fired glass for about 10 years, enamel glass on copper, and then also I think you might have one of my glazed graphite pieces. The one on the left is the glazed graphite. The one on the right is the enamel glass on copper. And of course, the one on the right, I'm using a lot of sgraffito. In other words, I'm digging into the surface, pulling away. You see the history that way because you're seeing what's left underneath. On this one, most of it was black. On a lot of the other work though, when you dig in or inscribe or use sgraffito, you see the marks and the colors that came before. So there's a little bit of history there. And you also asked me which ones I favored the most. And of course it would be encaustic and oil and cold wax because the versatility of encaustic, you can do anything with it. You can direct paint, torch fire, transfers, embed, collage, and you can use other painting materials, oil, pan pastels, charcoal. But I really love the intimacy and the physicality of oil paint and cold wax.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting that we have both Barbara and you as award winners because both of your works I feel like are very focused on like mark making in a way. Mm-hmm. Like Barbara's work has this textural element to it, and then yours as the encaustic also has this like texture to it. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about kind of the texture with oil, with making the encaustic and kind of the importance of mark making in your work?
Yeah, you know, with mark making, you can either add to it, and of course I use a bunch of things. I use Stabilos, Graphicrete, graphite, oil crayons, oil sticks, a lot of different things to add to the substrate. When I'm taking away from the substrate or sgraffito, I use a lot of different tools. I use a lot of clay tools, as a matter of fact, skewers. As a matter of fact, on the 9th Street Jazz, I used a nail. I had to see a neurologist last year because I'm so aggressive toward the cradle boards, which thank goodness my husband makes. He made all the cradle boards that I use. I'm so aggressive that I did something to my hand, so I kind of backed off a little bit. But, you know, I really enjoy doing that. I enjoy not only the history that you find in the piece, because every piece that I have has at least 2 or 3 paintings under it. This particular painting right here has 2 paintings under it, and one of them I've exhibited before. But, you know, every now and then you get tired of it or you want to do something else, so.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, we just had the Eddie Muma exhibit earlier this year, and I know he did that in his paintings. He had see some of them underneath even.
Yeah.
Is it one you had exhibited with us?
No, it was at the Museum of Fine Arts at FSU.
Oh, cool. So there's it's 9th Street Jazz. So do you like listen to jazz while you're creating this?
I do. You know, I listen to a lot of jazz. My husband, for the first 20 years, we've been married for 53 years. And for the first 20 years we were married, he made his living in the music business. He went to the University of North Texas where he was a graduate. He was a graduate student, but he also taught. And he then took a full-time position at Sam Houston State. So we were near the Dallas area, and then we were near the Houston area. So he was teaching at the universities and playing 6 nights a week. And a lot of times I would go. And of course, the music was always going at the house. This particular painting, I remember very clearly that I was playing a big band jazz, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, Tollaway Zone, and oh gosh, the other one was Groove Merchant. So, you know, sometimes with me, I don't know about anybody else, but because of the way that I paint, I cannot get too analytical about it. So while I don't have to have music, sometimes I want it just really quiet, but if I find out I'm focusing too much on the process and being too analytical, I will put something else on. I just don't think creativity and being analytical and the way that I paint, they don't go together. So I have to figure out a way to handle that.
Okay. So let a little more flow happen maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Not thinking about everything that you're doing. Hopefully you learned a lot of rules. You've learned enough to break them. You've learned some that you want to use if they come naturally. It seems like my mother called it my inside voice and my outside voice, but I have kind of it's real exuberant. This painting is more of that exuberance, and then I have more of a quiet reflection. And they're two different things, but they're coming from the same place.
Cool. Oh, that's really fascinating. Thank you so much, Terrie. That was really interesting. And I love to learn that there's other paintings underneath it. I think, you know, you could kind of tell, but I you know, from the scratchings and the markings, and when you see it in person, you can really see the layers a lot more clearly. But to find out that little nugget is really interesting. I love that. And that you're listening to jazz while making it. Thank you. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Well, we have our last award winner is our Best in Show award winner, sponsored by Doug Crowley Insurance Services. And this is a watercolor by Suzanna Winton, and the title is Cuban Cigar Lady, and you can see it right here. And again, I'll say for all of these, you know, it's it really makes a difference seeing the work in person. Not that I'm pressuring you to come out, but it is really nice to be able to see these pieces in person and get up close and see, you know, the layers and the detailing that is a lot harder to see on a screen. So I just wanted to introduce Suzanna, welcome you, and first off, just kind of ask you, what is it about portraits that captivates you? I know that's really what you're known for.
Yes, I have always just had a love for people. And so when I first started painting, here comes my cat. I was painting a lot of different subjects, and then I kind of decided to paint my children, and it was just magical for me. I just loved it. I loved trying to capture personalities and the challenge of you know, getting the expression and getting a feeling when you view the painting. And so it just was a natural fit for me. And I just was hooked from there. And I like to paint other subjects, but portraits are definitely my favorite.
I mean, so much so that you teach it.
I do. Yes. Well, you know, when I first started painting portraits, I was studying with Joe McFadden. Many of you probably remember him. And he didn't really do a lot of portrait work. And I decided to just start studying everything I could get my hands on, and some of the magazines and books, I felt like they would leave out things, and that always frustrated me. So when I decided to do the book, I decided that I would put everything in there and not leave anything out, right down to the color and the size of my brush. And try to even explain the amount of water that I use. So, because I did have that frustration of knowing you couldn't get from A to D with just those few steps. So, and I just remember how excited I was when I was learning how to paint. And, you know, that's the great thing about teaching, is when you can share what you know and have your students get really excited about it. That's the rewarding part about it.
Definitely. As an art educator, I agree.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your subjects. How do you select them? Are you photographing them? Do you have conversations with them? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yes. When I photograph my subjects, and I do commission portraits as well as like my character paintings, which is kind of what I would consider the Cuban cigar woman lady. So they're a little bit different. When I'm photographing to do a commission job, like say for a children's portrait, I go out and I take probably 100 or more photos. And during that time, I'm talking to my subject and I'm trying to get them to warm up to me and trying to learn a little bit about their personalities and their story. If they're a child, you know, sometimes their mother will give me hints about their personalities and that kind of thing. But, and then with my character paintings, my subjects, I am drawn to what they're wearing, what they're doing, you know, a certain look about them. The cigar lady was very, very happy and joyful. And in Cuba, you know, I noticed that they were very happy and they didn't have a lot. And that was just so, you know, I really admired that trait in them, that, you know, they were just happy people. And I was very, very drawn to her costume and the bright, vivid colors against, you know, the muted background of the buildings.
I actually was talking with a friend about this piece. I think she said it's the Supreme Court building in the background, I guess.
Okay.
The friend who friend from Cuba, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I know our juror talked a lot about this like beautiful contrast that you have, where it's this bright yellow, these really intense hues of color, and then those muted colors of the background. So is that, did you make that choice, or was it kind of muted like that already?
It kind of was already muted like that. And I had to piece together several photos that I had taken. I had to actually take out a woman. This is not the one that I worked from, but the woman in the blue, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see the photograph?
You stop the share for a second.
Okay, there, yeah. The woman in the blue I took out, and just focused on the woman in the yellow. But the background is very muted, and there were some people in the background that I had to take out as well. So it was, you know, I had to use several different photographs to work from, so to make it work.
Okay, cool. Did you talk with her much, or mostly kind of get in the photograph?
Well, I talked with her a little, and you know, I thought it was just so cool and interesting that she had a cigar. You know, she's got this beautiful dress on and flowers, and it's just so much, you know, a part of their custom, you know, with the cigars and everything. That's not something you know, we see here every day in America. So it was just kind of cool, you know. I was actually visiting there with a group of girlfriends that I went to high school with. So I took tons of photographs, and she was one of the ones, one of the subjects that just I was really drawn to, just from her, you know, she was just so joyful and colorful. And so
I think that yellow color really does it too. You know, it's like that bright yellow.
And yellow is very hard to paint. It doesn't appear that way maybe, but there's like a yellow orange, there's a that's in the shadowed areas, there is a more of a blue or green yellow. So it's it was complicated. It was complicated to do.
Can you, while you're talking about that, can you talk a little more about your process?
Yes. So I usually begin with the background and just get like a wash or two on. And then I quickly move to my subject and start getting the skin tone colors on. And the skin tone colors are just yellow and red. And I build and build and build with that until I get to a middle value. And then I will switch to a dark, which is usually a purple. And those are the purples and darks are used to contour the face and create the shadows on the subject. But quickly, I go ahead and start working on the clothing as well, because I need something to judge the color and the value off of my subject in all the areas. So, and the shadows in the dress are also purple. So the purple and the yellow are complementary. And so I try to use complementary colors whenever possible.
Yeah, that really makes them pop when you do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I can see that purple in the shadows too, you know, of her dress there. That's really cool.
And, you know, every now and then you'll get a sort of a glow you'll see in a painting, and that happened in that dress. It was really, I've had that happen a couple of times, and I guess it was just the combination of the complementary colors. So it was very, very neat that that happened.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I did get one. How long does it take to produce a painting like this?
Hi, Harris. You know, this is a full sheet. So usually it takes about a month to do one this size, at least a month to 6 weeks. And I work, you know, 4 to 6 hours a day on my paintings. So it takes a while for
Definitely.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. It's highly detailed. Someone else, last question I think we'll do until we kind of start to bring it
Oh, whoop. My iPad just fell over. Okay, can you see me now?
I can't, but there you are. Someone wants to know if you use masking fluid. And so if you don't know what masking fluid is, anybody on this, it's like a substance that you put on there that protects the white, keeps it from getting color. You do?
I do not generally use masking fluid.
Okay.
And the reason is it a lot of times will produce hard edges. And I depend on soft edges a lot in portraiture. So I prefer not to use it if possible. I just prefer to paint around my lights and my highlights and save them.
Yep. Which is more difficult, I'll say. Using the masking fluid is great because you can be really loose around it and then still get those sharp edges. But I think it's a lot of control to do it, you know, without the masking fluid. Awesome. So we are at, I think, just about 5 more minutes left. I think our director is on and wants to definitely thank everyone. If there's any other questions, you can put them in the chat. I know one other thing I wanted to ask of all 4 of the artists before we go too much further is I wanted to ask how people can find more of your work if they're looking to follow you. I know we did show Harris's Instagram, but if we want to go maybe in reverse order. Harris, what was your Instagrams in case people want to follow you? You're muted.
I should be a pro at this already. No, everything is pretty simple. It's harriswiltsher.art. And
Great.
That's my Instagram, and that's my Facebook page. I'm probably gonna bring back my web page with my website in 2021, and that's harriswiltsher.com. So it's, you know, it's really pretty simple. My email is harris.wiltsher@gmail.com. So everything is Harris Wiltsher. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Barbara, where can we find more of your work?
Well, current is on Facebook, Barbara Balzer, sculpture. I do have a webpage, bbalzer.net, but it's pretty abandoned and I should do something about it. And one day I'm going to do Instagram.
Yes. I've seen a lot of artists really grow their audience on Instagram, so I've heard that's the new place to be.
I know, I'm behind the loop.
Oh, that's all right. Aren't we all? Terrie, what about you? I'll unmute you. You're muted, Terrie.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Dan. My Instagram is Terrie Corbett _studio. And then of course, Terrie Corbett Paintings on Facebook. But I do have 34 paintings at the Artport Gallery here in Tallahassee.
Very excited.
So, yeah, so it's called Many Voices, One Heart. So if you have a chance to get out there, that would be nice.
Definitely. And then Suzanna, you're last.
Yes. Well, you can go to my website at Suzanna Winton Watercolors with an S.com, or and also my email is on there, wintonessay@aol.com. And I'm also on Facebook, just Suzanna Winton, and I'm on Instagram, and you guys just encouraged me to do a lot more with that now. So.
Good. Does anyone else have questions? Pull up. Were you saying something, Angie?
I just wanted to say that Instagram, I have been surprised at how many artists are posting videos, their process and everything, like Harris, and it's so fun because it's fairly simple to you know, engage with, and it's just I was surprised at how easy that was to get to access it. So I appreciate it, and yes, I would recommend Instagram. I know some artists who sell their work, they don't even have a website, they just use Instagram, which is fascinating to me. So but I don't know if Grace is here, if she's if she wanted to just say hi before we
absolutely. Hi guys.
Hey.
Yeah, so technology, we love it, we hate it. So sorry I was on late. I missed you, Harris. I caught the first bit and then missed the rest of Harris, but I got the rest of you guys. I just want to sign on and say thank you. So I have the great job of thanking everyone, and Suzanna and Terrie and Barbara and Harris, thank you for speaking to everyone tonight, and for being part of this exhibition. Thank you to all of the 69 artists who are part of Art in Gadsden. I think this is an exceptionally beautiful show this year, with the quality of work that everybody submitted, and of course with Angie's layout and design of it, and it's the way she installs our shows. We would be nothing without all of our artists submitting this great work and sharing it with everyone. I want to thank our juror, Katie Dietz, who did such a thoughtful job under difficult circumstances. I love that she had so much to say about the work that she chose. You can hear some of her comments in the exhibition video that was produced. And a huge thank you, if you could all applaud, I would have you applaud, but a huge thankful to Angie and Anissa. The work and thought that goes into planning something like this is extensive. They capture every detail, the questions they asked that really got you all talking about your work, the visuals that were produced for tonight. Just a beautiful job planning this, as they do everything so well. So you two, the dream team, thank you very much.
Thank you
for the work you do.
Thanks, Grace.
And thank our sponsors. And you had the slide up. Of course, we couldn't do this without money. So thank you to our sponsors. Last but not least, you probably recognize some of those names that were on the sponsor slide. We are so fortunate to have sponsors that come back year after year after year to support Art in Gadsden and our museum in general. So big thanks to them as well.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, I hope everybody has a good night. Thank you for joining us today. We did record this, so we're gonna try and see about getting it up in case you need, to watch it again. If you have any questions, feel free to check out our website or email our staff. And again, we are open, so if you wanna visit, there are still spots to visit through September 5th. Or if you wanna watch everything online, like Angie said, we do have all the artworks on on a Flickr page, so you can see them in a little slideshow, and then you can also go in and look at the photos up close as well. So lots of ways to experience this art. And thank you again to all of our award winners. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everyone take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.